Hey y'all, just wanted to do a special opening for the show just to give you some context about things happening. This was my first time using StreamYard. So there are some technical glitches throughout the show. I found out only later that my mic was severely turned down through the whole thing. So I had to go through and edit some stuff. So if I didn't catch something, if I sound really quiet, or if Justin sounds really loud when I'm talking, that's the reason why. Another thing to note is that there were some technical glitches with internet, but I actually feel like Justin is pretty easy to understand through it all. So I left it in the show. Just know it doesn't go on like that through the whole show. It's just a short section. You can skip ahead if you'd like. But he actually makes some great points that I thought were well worth keeping in when we recorded it. Also, we recorded the show on Monday night, which was about a few hours away from the Hollywood Reporter story breaking. So we didn't have the details of that story yet when we went through. So please note every opinion expressed is without revelations outlined in that story. I will say, however, that my good friend Mario Francisco Robles over at Superman on Film recorded his latest Fanboy podcast episode where he has a great breakdown of all of this, and he's pretty much where I am. I'm sure we'll cover it in a future show, but if you go over to the Fanboy podcast and listen to the latest episode, Mario Francisco Robles does a whole breakdown, and he has got a great take on it, which is where I'm at. I hope you guys enjoy the show. Thanks so much for tuning in. Today on the show, I've got my first guest. We're going to be talking about how much we love the DC Universe. Plus, for Into the Twitterverse, we'll be covering the Restore the Snyderverse movement. All that and more on today's show. Welcome to the show, guys. Hey, it's our first video podcast ever, second episode, but first time I'm recording it on video, and I'm really excited for the show tonight because we have our first guest. And our guest today is somebody that I really was hoping would be my first guest, and it is the one and only Justin Kowalski.
Hey!
J. Rocka. From the Let's Go podcast. Justin, thank you so much for being on the show.
Hey man, thanks for having me, Josh. This is fun. I love talking, so I'm like, yes. And I'm not in charge, so it's even better.
Oh man, it's gonna be so good. It's gonna be really great. So we're just gonna dive right into it, Justin. For the first segment today, of course, I have two segments on my show, and one of them is Into the Twitterverse, where we cover topics going on Twitter, the place that I don't want to speak for Justin, but I feel like both of us love Twitter, but like have a sort of like push-pull relationship with Twitter, not love-hate. It's like there's a little bit of it can be fun sometimes, but it can also be a place of immense frustration. And
you're so nice. You're so kind.
And today we're going to be covering a topic that is sure to get us a lot of fans tonight. Restore the Snyderverse. Hashtag Restore the Snyderverse. So for those of you who have been living under a rock, if you don't know what this is, you probably shouldn't be watching the show. But for those of you who have been living under a rock, what the Restore the Snyderverse hashtag is about is it is a successor to a Release the Snyder Cut hashtag. Basically, a group of fans of director Zack Snyder got together and did a hashtag campaign that got the Snyder Cut of Justice League released. And now that they've got the Snyder Cut of Justice League released, it's not enough. They are now looking for a restoration of the Snyderverse, which could mean a lot of different things. There's a lot of explanations going around on Twitter, and we're going to cover all of those right now. So, Justin, overall thoughts on Restore the Snyderverse. What do you think of it? What do you think it means? What is happening with this hashtag?
Yeah, I think my first question with Restore the Snyderverse is I didn't know it went away. I feel like the things that, and I'm not being a jerk when I say that. I'm like, well, I mean, the ball that he's rolling that started with like Man of Steel into Batman versus Superman. We had Wonder Woman. We had Wonder Woman, 84. That it's all been begotten from the original like world he's created, Aquaman. And some will argue, like, well, in Zack Snyder's Justice League, this is what Aquaman's story was and whatever. But Jason Momoa has his, you know, his DNA has been it since Batman versus Superman, and I would say I would consider him part of the Snyderverse, right? I would consider like,
Yeah.
James Ayers, sorry,
David
David
Ayers.
Ayers, David
David
Ayers, like
Ayers.
Suicide Squad, part of the Snyderverse, and Birds of Prey came from that, which is part of the Snyderverse. So I feel like uh, it is the hashtag Restore the Snyderverse to me doesn't seem accurate. I would say if you guys want to have a hashtag, maybe continue the Snyderverse, or I don't know. Like I think hashtag is kind of a
Or Zack Snyder's Justice League 2 or something
yeah.
like that.
There you go. That would be better because I think that's what they want. They want continuing, the Superman saga, the Superman saga where he's barely in it, where he's barely in the
That's
saga.
right. That's right.
That's that. I think that's my like encapsulated thought. I feel like, okay, hashtag away.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel the same way. I actually had the same thought as you. To be honest, when I first saw it, I thought, wait, what do they mean? Because Gal Gadot's still Wonder Woman. Jason Momoa is still Aquaman. They're about to start rolling cameras on Ezra Miller's The Flash. All of those characters were introduced in Justice League, and until he lit himself on fire, Ray Fisher was going to appear as Cyborg in The
Yeah.
Flash. So they're not necessarily walking away from the Snyderverse. I mean, you could even make a case that Shazam kind of leaned into the Snyderverse.
Oh, dude, no argument there. Like it has Snyder all over it. Like it's like a celebration of like the modern DC films is really what it was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I feel
Which is
like,
Snyder.
yes, exactly. And I
Yeah.
think that, I mean, I've expressed on Twitter that I'm not necessarily the biggest fan of some of the things that Zack Snyder did with the characters, but I think that he put together an amazing cast, and that cast is continuing, and so there's no real need for a restoration, quote unquote, of the Snyderverse. But I think what they're really wanting is a continuation of the story Zack Snyder wants to tell.
Yeah.
And the adjacent films to that. Ben Affleck's The Batman, which we don't even know if Ben Affleck wants to do. By all accounts,
Yeah.
he doesn't want to do it. And now there's talk with Joe Manganiello. I would love to see a Joe Manganiello Deathstroke series, by the way.
Yeah.
Sign me up for that.
Same.
But so that's kind of, I think, what they're talking about. Have you heard about some of Zack Snyder's plans for Justice League 2?
Yeah, I saw the leaked storyboards that came out a few weeks ago. I was a little privy to some of it a long time ago when I was, part of the Batman on Film. I was like, I'm still like close with all those guys, but I was part of the site. There was information we had that we were privy to, and so it wasn't a surprise, a lot of that stuff. But it was like seeing it out there and seeing the storyboards, like, oh, okay, well, this validates a lot of the stuff that we were told. Sometimes you don't know like what's 100% like on the rocks and what's not. And so it was like, okay, well, that sounds crazy. That sounded crazy. Like the Bruce Lois stuff was some of the major like spots. I was like, I don't know if I love that idea, but you're swinging, bro. You're swinging. So, yeah, I wanted to touch on what you talked about. Zack Snyder, he casts like $1 million. Like that guy, I have a few, question marks with some of his casting, but majority of, I would say like 96% of it has been amazing. And so, and I again, that's why I feel like you don't need to restore anything. It's still going. Like
Yeah.
his seeds have been planted and it's continuing to go. So
Yep.
yeah,
Totally. Out of curiosity, what are some of your casting misses for Zack Snyder? Because I agree with you, and I'm
yeah.
curious to see if you have the same ones I do.
Yeah, I didn't love Jesse Eisenberg as Lex Luthor. I thought he was. I get what he was going for. Like, I understand the choices. Like, it doesn't come to me as if like I just don't understand this. I just don't prefer the choice.
Hmm.
You have a lot of hyperbolic takes like Jesse Eisenberg's the best Lex Luthor ever. Like, okay, like that's fine. Like, I think in my opinion, dude, Michael Rosenbaum's the best,
Oh
Lex
yeah, I
Luthor ever,
agree,
right?
one hundred
Uh,
percent.
he was just great, but I mean, I guess he's a TV show. I mean, he was a great Lex Luthor on a kind of a weird Superman show where he never became Superman. But
Hmm.
um, if it's the multiverse, I'm just gonna pick Michael Rosenbaum's my favorite Lex Luthor. But um, I just didn't love the kind of like fidgety Lex Luthor. It didn't gel with me. I always wanted like it to be a this is kind of a weird take now, but before he was a vampire, Army Hammer would have been a great Lex Luthor. I think he would have been a great like physically. I like the Lex Luthor who's like physically like on point. He's like a in shape dude, has all the money, but he's
Hmm.
got this bald hair issue. And he doesn't have the power Superman has, and that drives him nuts. I love that aspect of
Justin,
him.
why are they so scared to make Lex Luthor bald in movies?
Yeah, I don't know, man. It's all
It's
only Kevin
bizarre.
Spacey had it, but he had the wigs. But he was the only one who was like naturally. Yeah, you know what? This whole Lex Luthor, the whole bald part of this, it's like so he shaves his head in prison.
Hmm.
Like they missed the opportunity that the Kryptonian like birth matrix made him bald. Like that would have been a
Yeah.
good like I would have bought that. I would have bought the comic book science on that.
Yep.
But now it's like, oh, so does he just continue to shave it?
Hmm.
Or did
Hmm.
they shave it because it was falling out? Like those are dumb questions, but it's really like a question. I'm like, well, how come the dudes like who had a flowing locks, like as a man who doesn't have flowing locks anymore, like tell me why he has to shave them? Why is he making this fashion statement? But anywho, yeah, that's
Mine.
true. Like why are they nervous about this?
I agree with you on Lex Luthor. Lex Luthor. Sorry,
It
Paul.
Luthor,
You
yeah.
you said it is Luthor.
Option
Uh,
two is the only answer.
Option two is the animated
Yeah,
series pronunciation of
yeah,
of Lex Luthor. But he it definitely wasn't what I was. It wasn't what I was expecting as a casting choice. And then
yeah,
once the casting choice happened, it wasn't what I was expecting out of the Jesse Eisenberg version of Lex Luthor, if that
yeah,
makes sense. So I thought that, because this was back in 2013, so it was a few years removed from, or it's back in 2016, and
yeah,
the casting probably happened in 2014. But it was a few years removed from The Social Network. So I
yeah.
thought for sure they were going to go the Lex Luthor as Mark Zuckerberg
Hmm.
kind of route. They were going to make him like this young tech entrepreneur, and it was going to be this like different thing. But they really went down the sort of Alexander Luthor Jr. version of the character, like
Yeah.
a little bit unhinged, kind of version of the character. Yeah, I didn't care for that one either. I know that some fans are gonna like nail to me to the wall for this one, but I did not care. I love Amy Adams as an actress, but I think she was miscast as Lois Lane.
I'm with dude. I'm on that. Dude, we're on the same couch, bro.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I agree. I just she's fine, but she doesn't scream Lois Lane to me. She just doesn't.
No.
I think I've always preferred the brunette Lois Lane.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, I'm in the Erica Durance. As much as I don't like the Smallville show, I love the casting on
Oh yeah,
Smallville.
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
I thought she
totally.
was great. Terry Hatcher was great.
Hmm.
You know, I always like when Superman Returns, not Superman Returns, Superman Lives or Nicolas Cage. I always thought a mid '90s Courtney Cox would be a great
Oh, she would
Lois
have been
Lane,
perfect. Yeah,
right? Like I think
yeah.
she would have been great. But yeah, I don't think we've had a uh, a strong Lois in a while.
Oh yeah,
So
no. There's a scene in Man of Steel where Lois is like talking to another is she's talking to it like a Matt Drudge kind of character,
Yeah,
an
yeah.
internet entrepreneur who's like posting stuff online, and she's having a drink, and the dialogue, it just sounds so weird coming out of Amy Adams, who I
Hmm.
think is a great actress, and I
Yeah.
think she does the best that she can with the role, but I think she's all wrong for it. So
Hmm.
that was my rare Zack Snyder miss. But the guys cast Jason Momoa, Gal Gadot. As much as Ben Affleck's there, there's some things with Ben Affleck's Batman that are, for me, we can talk about that a little bit later on in the show.
Hmm.
But that didn't necessarily resonate all that much with me. Um, but and of course, like I think Henry Cavill is great as Superman.
Oh yeah.
um he is really great at casting, and I really hope that they continue with that in some form. I don't think that they are.
Yeah.
I think that based on, especially in the last couple of days, I think that DC is going to go in a completely different direction with these characters, which I don't know if you saw the rumors, but and this is on Twitter, so it's appropriate to fit in this
Oh
segment.
yeah.
There's a rumor that Greg Berlanti and Mark Guggenheim are going to be taking on a more active role
Hmm.
in the creative side of DC.
I
And
did not see that.
yeah, and it's a the rumor is that it's gonna be wider than television, so
Huh.
they're gonna be doing stuff in films as well as TV.
Huh.
So I personally think that could work because as much as I think a lot of people are like a lot of people's reaction on Twitter was, oh, that's terrible. Greg Berlanti's awful. Mark Guggenheim's awful. But I think what a lot of those fans don't realize is that there's a lot of pressure on television show creators to make TV shows and to keep them going for super long.
Uh huh.
So, like, it's in the CW's interest to have the Flash go on forever, right?
Hmm.
In perpetuity, and Arrow to go on in perpetuity. So yes, after 3 seasons, like I watched the first 3 seasons of the Flash and I fell off because just it I
Yes.
lost my interest.
Same. Yeah.
Yeah. But I think that the first 3 seasons were really solid, and what I'm hoping is Warner Media and Warner Brothers can kind of see what Disney's doing with their Marvel properties. Some TV shows will have multiple seasons. Some shows like WandaVision are going to just have one, and I think that that's the approach that they need to take, and it's something Berlanti needs to encourage if he is gonna become more involved in the creative, because some things are gonna work for multiple seasons. Some things aren't. I think they could do a multiple season Superman show, for example, and be really successful. I think Superman and Lois could go on for 5 6 seasons and be great. But
Yeah. Is
um,
Berlanti uh is he spearheading the, I don't know who's the like producers on that. Is that the same crew?
yeah, yeah,
Okay.
Superman and Lois. Yeah,
Okay. Yeah, I wasn't sure like who was producing those, because that one just feels completely different. Like until we get the Superman team, that's my thing. That's my only issue is like, oh man, so
everybody has a team, right?
yeah, it's like, oh, there's your science guy and there's your other it's like everyone has like a version of Star Labs that kind of works for them. And okay, like it became like that's the formula, and so I didn't quite. I started that's it became boring to me, like, oh, okay, there's the like. I, I I loved Arrow, but I just once it was like the Felicity thing, I couldn't deal with Felicity, and so. But you're right. I think you're right when it comes to approaching TV, and that's what the critics of that are going to say is like, oh well, I don't want Felicity and then the Team Arrow and Team Flash type of stuff. That's where my immediate criticisms go to. But that's the job. The job is to like lead us along for 7 seasons so we can get in syndication, right?
Yep, yep.
And so okay, let's see. Like I remember, I think Guggenheim was originally part of the Green Lantern creative team of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I don't
Berlanti was
know.
too.
Oh, was Berlanti too? Okay, so
Mm-hmm.
like who knows? And that was a victim of studio meddling as well. Like,
Yeah.
I know people throw Jeff Johns in there, but he really had nothing to do with
Mm-hmm.
that film except, oh, we should add parallax, but they didn't even do parallax as they should have done parallax. They took an idea. So uh if that's something that's going on, okay. Like, I'm so hands off anymore. I don't take any of it personal. As we as we go back to restore the Snyderverse stuff, I think the biggest issue there is people take it personal,
Yeah.
as if they are the great victims of some terrible agenda against him. And I know that's just not what it is. It's a movie studio that wants to make money, and they where the argument is now, if if the numbers and the streaming and everything is profitable, if the Snyder like cut brought Warner Brothers some money, okay. But in 2016 it didn't do what they wanted, and so they turned away, and that's why things changed. And I feel like they didn't change for the better. They probably would have been much better off putting out Snyder's movie anyways. I mean, if you want to like talk about like Zack Snyder's Justice League, the 214-minute version may have just been a better deal. It may even cemented their cause. Maybe they could have been like, let's just get away from this. It didn't do well. Three strikes, you're out.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, man, hashtag movements. I don't know. I'm not really for them. It's not my thing. Like, the hashtag anything as if to be part of some type of like, I don't know. Let's keep doing this. To me, I feel like it's I'd rather always wait. I feel like Warner Brothers has a plan. As much as people say they don't have a plan, like, I think that's just from people who don't like the plan. They obviously had a plan because all the last 2 weeks they've been
Mm-hmm.
announcing things. So restore the Snyderverse is not part of it.
Yeah.
You know, so yeah. Sorry, that was just a lot of words, but I'm
Yeah.
just kind of like processing through my thoughts of like, I don't know what they think the end game is going to be, and if they do want to, if let's say they do say, hey, we're gonna continue on with this. There's a lot of problems with
Mm-hmm.
this theory of like how movies get made. Okay, so this comes out 2025 probably, and who's to say Momoa wants to do another movie? His contract is 3 Aquaman movies in Justice League. Like, he's done those. Like, he's got 2 left.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, he could re-option, but I don't know if he wants to be
Mm-hmm.
Aquaman forever. Same with Gal Gadot, and we just Ben Affleck don't want to come back. He's done. Flashpoint's it. He's out. Like,
Yeah.
the rumors are he didn't even want to, like, he complained on set for the Snyder cut, like, I get this thing off me. Like, there's like rumors and like people on set said, yeah, he couldn't wait to get the mask off. So as much as, and I like Batfleck. I'm a Batfleck guy. Like, I've invested
Mm-hmm.
much
Mm-hmm.
money into the Batfleck character. Like, my kid's got 7 different versions of the action figure, right? He just isn't going to come back,
Yeah.
and I'm not holding my breath. If he does come back, cool. I'm excited. It just doesn't feel like he is. But we also got
Yeah.
Zack Snyder's
Yeah.
Justice League, and that came out. So who knows what could happen? I just don't take it personally. That's all.
Mm-hmm.
And so many do,
Yeah.
man. They want to
I
fight
think
about it, and I'm like, okay.
I think that's super wise, and I can just add, as somebody who's been following this stuff for since I was 13 years old, younger actually, since I was 12, and I found BatmanOnFilm.com when I was 12 years old and started posting on the message boards over there as a 12-year-old. I I've learned that you have no control over this stuff,
Yeah.
and you just kind of got to roll with the punches and enjoy what you're getting. There's been takes on these characters that I've loved in that time, and there's been takes on these characters that I haven't been so stoked on. But it's it all comes around, and there's always opportunities. So I think it's a good place to transition and talk about why we love
Oh,
the DC
yes.
universe for the main event.
Oh, man.
The best. So let's just start as an overview. Now, as we know, there are two sort of main um, comic book publishers. There's Marvel and there's DC. I love them both
Yeah.
to varying degrees, but I have always been more of a DC guy, and that's going to be a recurring theme on this show. I'm probably going to have a lot of episodes dedicated to DC related and adjacent stuff. Yeah, I've always been more of a DC fan, and just give me kind of an overview, Justin. We've we kind of did a little pregame on Twitter Messenger, so we've got some topics coming up that you shared with me. But
Oh yeah.
what draws you to DC more as an overview, just to kick it off?
Yeah, and I feel like this is it for a lot of people, but Batman, as a kid, Batman was like, I was fascinated, man. I remember I'd get these little um Mego Batmans. They're like Star Wars size, and I'd pull their heads off I remember getting those a lot. So something about Batman, my mom would cut out pictures of Adam West, like if it was a magazine for some reason. I remember having them and and she'd put them on like cardboard, like a paper doll almost, and I would just like, it's Batman, and put him in front of like, a fan. I don't know. So I always loved Batman. And then when that film came out, man, I lost my mind, dude. It was like transformative. It was like, this is my guy. It, I loved it. And so when I finally got a chance to jump into comics, obviously I went to Batman, and then one of the I don't know if you've read this book, but I remember I was just absorbing as much Batman stuff as I could. And I was like, oh, look at this. Justice League. I know the Justice League like from Super Friends, but it was Justice League International. It was like a collection of like the first trade, which
Mm-hmm.
was the complete if you're familiar with the Justice League, it's the big guys, right? This was like
Mm-hmm.
none of those guys. I was like, wait, it's Blue Beetle, it's Booster Gold, it's Guy Gardner, it's Captain Atom, it's a bunch of like, second stringers. And I like, it blew my mind. I'm like, who are these characters? And I just started to dig. And anyway, so like Batman was my gateway. The second thing is like I always was kind of attracted to the icons, like literally the
Mm-hmm.
logos. Um, every one of the characters has a logo,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like think of a DC character who you can't throw their logo on a shirt. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I was just attracted to. I used to draw the logos. Yeah, they look at you like, hey, branding. I used to draw them on paper. I used to like always, and I think I would throw like Captain America and Spider Man, and I would always have like superheroes fighting like a dinosaur or something. Like they'd all be surrounding it, but I'd draw their logos on the side. Like this is who's in this book.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
and the Marvel characters, they're not very icon. They don't have like icons on their chest. Spider Man does. Captain America does, and okay, Punisher. Okay, now I'm gonna create a whole list, but like not all of them. I think it's like you stop at like four. Like, what is Thor's logo? Nothing.
Uh-huh.
you know,
Mm-hmm.
uh, no, Hawkeye, nothing. Like they don't have any like some type of branding, and the branding really connected with me. I loved Hawkman's like Hawk signal. John Jones doesn't really have one. They kind of make it like a red Mars moon or whatever, but everyone else has some really cool like like icons because they're icons. And so for me, it did something in my design. And we both have design background, so it connected to me in an emotional way. A good logo connects you, and yeah, I think
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of connectivity to that. Um, and so as a you like kind of you fall in love with this like idea of like, oh, this character like Hawkman, it's like a third stringer. I loved it, but I liked getting into his history. And as I got into like books like JSA, Jeff Johns and David Goyer all worked on that book, and it went into the legacy of DC, and it just opened it up
Mm-hmm.
even more to me. And so like more of those characters, like, oh shoot, the JSA, but like it was a great way before like the New 52 came and was trying to like I know they had like these initiatives to be diverse and stuff, and I like that. I like when they explore characters, but the JSA did it so well
Mm-hmm.
with
Mm-hmm.
without it being like this is an initiative. It was just like, oh, this is a story we're telling. And I think it's easier, because there's people who are always resisting, like, oh, I don't like change and I don't like things like that. But when you do it well, like whether you're DC or Marvel, like Marvel did it really well with Miles Morales. I think they did a good job of bringing in a new character who's using the name of a familiar character and made him his own.
Mm-hmm.
um well, DC was doing that with the JSA, and all these legacy characters. One of the best ones is Mr. Terrific, and then they kind of didn't really do anything with him until now. Tom King's using him in the Strange Adventure story, and it's phenomenal. Like they did a version on Arrow which was awful. It was like the most like off-putting version of this character. I'm like, oh, y'all didn't read y'all didn't read Mr. Terrific, did you? But uh like they did a good job at
Yeah.
like legacy, like taking these characters from the past and then bringing them to now and honoring those legacies as well. And so I love this like idea of the baton pass, but it's funny, it never really works with anyone else. Besides, it doesn't work with Superman, it doesn't work with Batman. We always want to go back to Bruce Wayne and Clark Kent for some reason. Like those characters,
Yeah.
I don't know what it is about them, and maybe they should have done it in like the 70s or something, and maybe it would have been, we would have been used to it now. But you can't really pass the baton on those
Mhm.
guys. For some reason, it ends up
Yeah.
going back to, I guess, the icon. So sorry, there's those are like all three of my things, short
Yeah.
version, but we can extrapolate.
Oh yeah, for sure. Well, going speaking of Batman,
Mm,
we can go back to Batman.
always.
So I shared this. Where's the show? This is it's whatever. The banner's wrong. We're talking about Batman.
There we go.
There you go. Talking about Batman, I shared a little bit about the story on the podcast that I'm doing with Adam Basciano called Back to the Batcave. We're doing that show once a month, and I talked a little bit about my journey as a Batman fan, but basically my mom strategically planned our naps. Me and my little brother. I have a brother that's a year younger than me, and she strategically planned our naps around the Batman '66 TV show because
Oh,
she
it's fun.
knew that we liked that show and that we could, that we would basically stay in our rooms and probably fall asleep to it eventually as well, and have a little nap. So we watched that show together, and it was great.
Y'all
And
had
then
some crazy
Batman the
dreams.
animated series. Oh yeah, for sure. And then Batman the animated series started shortly after that. I was 5 years old, and when Batman the animated series came out, and started watching that after kindergarten, after school, and continued watching that into my childhood. And then, of course, I started watching the movies, and I got into the Keaton movies. And when I was 8, my mom and dad took me to go see Batman Forever at the drive-in movie theater in town in Northern California. So we went and watched Batman Forever up there, and then yeah, when Batman and Robin came out when I was 9, and or sorry, when I was 10, and yeah, it was, I liked it when I was a kid. I thought it was great when I was a kid, when I was 10 years old. And I was wondering when the next Batman movie was going to come out. And so I started Googling online. We had internet by that time, and I found Batman on Film and went to the message board and started learning about the production, all the production woes of all the different versions of Batman 5, as it was known at the time, that were going into production. And during that time, though, it was great because, I started asking questions about comics and got
Hmm.
some comic recommendations. So that's when I read Batman Year One, and I read Batman The Long Halloween, and I
Wow.
read Batman Dark Victory, and all of these like really cool books. I was probably a little older. I was like 12 or 13 or 14 at this time. So I was like the perfect age for that stuff. And it really captured my imagination. And that's when I learned Batman and Robin was actually terrible.
Right. You're
Um,
like, wait a second.
and yeah, and so, but definitely Batman '66, Batman the animated series, and the movies were kind of my gateway into the character. And I love the comics. I mean, I can't say that I'm like a faithful monthly Batman reader. I read it often monthly, but yeah, I'm mostly trying, because of how expensive comics are getting now.
Yeah,
I'm mostly trying to wait for the DC Universe Infinite,
that's the
So
smart way to go right now.
yeah, so I'm catching up on Batman. I think I read what did I just read? Oh my gosh. What am I in the middle of? Oh, I'm reading a lot of Superman comics at the moment. Um, I'm reading Tom Taylor's Suicide Squad, which is
Oh,
really
good.
good.
That's a good run.
Uh, yeah, and the Batman book I'm kind of in the middle of is I'm reading. Looks like I'm reading classic Batman stories at the moment. Oh, I'm reading the main Batman title.
Hmm.
That's where I'm at. I'm in
Are you caught
issue.
up on? Okay.
No, I'm on issue 38. It looks
Oh,
like.
okay. So
So
you're
I'm
still in the good stuff.
yeah,
The
yeah, I'm
Tom
reading
King.
I'm in the middle of the Tom King stuff. Yeah.
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 I'm
So,
not a I'm not a super fan of where it's at right now. Once he
mhm.
got off the book at 85, it's been a hit or miss. Big time hit or miss. It feels like an IP machine now, like new character, new
Yeah.
character, new character, new character, and not always not always the best, but yeah.
Yeah, and I've heard that a lot, and I've actually like picked up a couple of issues and like kind of like browsed through them. It's how do you say the author's name?
Ty- Tynion? Tynion?
Tynion, yeah,
Yeah.
Tynion, James Tynion the fourth. He's usually pretty good. I'm actually quite surprised at how. I'm surprised at how poorly the title's written from
Yeah.
what I've seen. And I'm also surprised that DC just keeps them on the book. It seems like they would want to protect their most precious IP, but they really seem to be just digging into what he's doing.
I don't know. I mean, it might be selling. I think some people were not fans of Tom King's run either, though. Like he was supposed to go to
Mm-hmm.
100, and they cut him at 85, and then it's like, but we'll let you finish your story in the Batman Catwoman book, which is phenomenal. Um,
Oh, it's great. Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, I don't know. I really don't know. I don't follow sales so much anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I just kind of, and it's been hard because I've been buying that Batman book. Haven't missed much for years. Like I have too
Mm-hmm.
many in my garage. Um,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and so it's hard to say no. I'm not pulling it no more. Um, I think the last issue I bought was 104, right
Mm-hmm.
before Future State. I was like, I'm off.
Yeah.
Like, give me a reason to come back, and I just don't. So
Mm-hmm.
there's tons of there's the thing. Here's the cool thing though. There's still tons of great Batman content that continues to come out. It's just not in the main book. Detective's actually really good. Detective's been really good. Um, yeah, it's a hard to place. It's a hard place to be though when like your favorite character that you can't say you love their flagship book.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I love the way that Scott Snyder described the difference between writing detective and writing Batman, the main Batman title.
Mm.
And he basically said detective is sort of like the like ground level stories of Batman. It's like
Yeah.
the mysteries. And Batman, the main title is the superhero book.
Yeah.
So you write it a little bit differently, you know? And I thought that's a great way to describe that. And something I really wish, it seems like directors and people involved in the creative and other mediums kind of think those two are at odds with each other, and they're
Mm.
really not. You can bring those two sides of the character together.
Oh yeah.
He's both a dark detective and a superhero. So yeah, I shared with another thing that I yeah. So Batman is also my favorite character. I really like him. Really, I've become a fan of other characters as well over the years. So I'm a huge Superman fan now too.
Mm.
And I watch. I always tell people if you release a Superman movie or a TV show, I'm in. Like I'll watch it. So I've really been enjoying Superman and Lois and stuff. And since, to be honest with you, since the films, I've become a Wonder Woman fan too, and
Mm.
I've gone back and I've read some of the runs of Wonder Woman that have been really great. Brian Azzarello's run on Wonder Woman was really good.
Oh, the New 52 one, right? Is that?
Yeah,
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 it was good.
it was really good. It's kind of a different take on the character.
Yeah.
But it's really well done. And then Greg Rucka kind of does a more classic version of the character in Rebirth, and it's
Yeah.
really good. And some of his early 2000s stuff with that character is really good. And so I've been getting into some Wonder Woman. I've read some of JSA from Jeff Johns. It's phenomenal.
Oh
It's
man,
so
yeah.
good.
JSA, and then when they always did this, they canceled it and they just called it Justice Society of
Yeah.
America.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just great books, man. Like,
Yeah.
I highly recommend those. And
Yeah.
anything like Grant Morrison's Justice League was really good.
Mm-hmm.
If
Mm-hmm.
you're just trying to get into some you know must read DC stuff, I would say Grant Morrison's Justice League all the way into even when Mark Waid started writing it too was really good.
Mm-hmm.
And I think once you got out of I think in the mid '80s, I think like the title numbers, not the years, uh, it started to falter a little bit. They didn't
Mm-hmm.
know where they were, but yeah, there's so many you know great pieces of DC history that again that kind of goes back to why I gravitated to DC history because they were really good at referring to it for a while. It was so much part of the tapestry of the universe,
Mm-hmm.
um,
Mm-hmm.
and which may have been bad for people who weren't part of it. Like, wait, what's Crisis?
Mm-hmm.
What's
Mm-hmm.
what are these things? But to me, I found so much enjoyment in it because like you're investing your time and you're collecting and you're reading these stories and when they have like little touch points like oh shoot have you read any of the Death of Superman stuff?
Yes.
Okay, so like towards the end of that story, it was for me it was cool because it fed into the Green Lantern story because you had
Mm-hmm.
the cyborg. Spoilers, everybody who hasn't read a 20-year-old story, but like destroying Coast City, which caused
Yep.
Hal Jordan to go mad in his
Mm-hmm.
own book, and it just kind of the stories all kind of split, and I really like that. I really like
Yeah.
that there was I'm a continuity guy, and so
Yeah.
I like when there's not forced though. I don't like things that just happen because it happens, but I like that's a cool story beat. How do we tie into that?
Yeah.
Organically, like life. Like if you did something and it,
Mm-hmm.
if you got in a car accident on the freeway and you live, you're not hurt, but it's going to impact me on the freeway. I'm going to be impacted by your decisions, right?
Yes.
Like especially here in California, it's
Yep.
going to hit me.
Mm-hmm.
Like stuff like that makes sense. Um, and so I really appreciated the how like I think I just feel like early to early like mid '90s to mid 2000s was really great for DC.
Oh yeah.
Um,
Yep.
so many good stories came out of it, and
Mm-hmm.
I think they understood who their characters were and what stories they were trying to tell
Mm-hmm.
and what the fans wanted of them. And now I think they're trying to figure that out again right now. I just don't know if they're there.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I
yeah.
think I think all the way up to basically Flashpoint,
Hmm.
DC was the kind of the post-crisis era of DC, all the way through to Infinite Crisis and a little bit beyond that. They sort of had this really tight continuity
Hmm.
that they had built up, and for people who don't know what DC does, that Marvel doesn't do is Marvel's history is like its whole history. Like
Yeah.
everything that's ever happened in Marvel Comics has happened. DC, it's like they have such a long they have a much longer publication history than a lot of the Marvel characters do. I mean, they're
Yeah.
Captain America and all that has been around as long, but the DC seems to every 20 to 30 years just reboot everything. And
Yeah.
they did it. Sometimes they do it to great effect. I think in the late '80s and early '90s, post Crisis, they did it really well and established some really great versions of the characters.
Yeah.
The late '80s was when we got John Byrne's Superman, which inspired a lot of Superman the animated series.
Hmm.
We got Batman Year One from Frank Miller.
Yeah.
We got a lot of those great sort of seminal comic book moments that kind of set up to bring it all around to the Trinity. We got the Wonder Woman series from George Perez
Oh yeah.
that kind of established that character. Teen Titans, which had been going before, but kind of went into a sort of new phase after that. So,
Oh, Teen Titans was like selling better than the X-Men during that
yeah,
time. Like
yeah.
that was like their bread and butter was Teen Titans.
And
Crazy.
they're trying to kind of X-Menize the Teen Titans again. Did you see that with Teen Titans Academy? They're
Yeah.
making like the main team, the professors or whatever, which is an interesting concept.
Yeah.
I'd be interested in seeing it. But For the sake of time, I want to move. I just want to talk about the logos and icons
Oh
because
yeah.
I agree with you. I love, and not only that, I don't just love like these logos and icons. We've talked a little bit about this before. Sorry, this is going to engage 12 people probably total. So we won't spend too much time on this, but I also love the logos and icons on the actual books, and also the way that they lay out
Mm.
the branding, the DC branding. They reintroduced it, and it looks really cool
Oh yeah.
now. But there's also been some misses over the years and stuff. So let's just talk briefly. I think we've talked about this before, but the DC needs an intervention on the Batman logo for the
Yeah.
comics.
Oh, have we talked? We haven't talked about this. Yeah. Go for it. Go for it.
Yeah.
Because I got thoughts, man.
Oh, it is so dreadful looking. It's like there's something weird going on with the font on
Yeah.
it's like this custom. It's like somebody literally took the lasso tool in Photoshop and spelled out Batman around a Batman logo, and then took it into some sort of 3D program and just added the most like obnoxious textures, and they
Yeah.
put that on their flagship book week after week, and it's unnecessary because there have been some great Batman logos over the year, and the one that they
Yeah.
replaced was perfectly fine. It was the mid 2000s one that they had with Batman Hush with the
Oh yeah.
Batman spelled out in kind of like a classic font with the bat cape behind it
Yeah.
and stuff like that. So, yeah, just share your thoughts, Justin. Let's just
Oh
continue to just
man.
crap all over this logo because it's
Yeah. It is literally the worst logo of their entire line. Um. It, I don't know why they changed Batman's logo so much. Like Superman doesn't change, man.
Mhm.
Like
Mhm.
it's kind of like, yeah, that's who he is. He's been
Mhm.
established as this look, and the Superman look is great. Like you don't need to change it, y'all. Like it looks
Mhm.
great, unless
Mhm.
there was a different book, like, what if they had a different type of Superman, the Man of Tomorrow or whatever. Sure, they could do something different, but you
Mhm.
know, Action has its logo, it's not
Mhm.
changing. They've done things variations where it's like Superman in Action Comics, but like when they keep the classic Action logo, I feel like they've refined it and stuff over time,
Mhm.
but they haven't really changed it from what it is.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, but this Batman logo, it's kind of like I feel like they were trying to make it like the Arkham video game logos.
Yep.
Like it was
Mhm.
inspired by that stuff.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
it just doesn't work. And I'm like, if I was in charge, if I was the art director at DC, hit me up, DC. I would go back to the the 70s logo, or even the early 80s logo, which was honestly
Mhm.
just the Batman cinematic Tim Burton movie. I mean, all they did with that one was just make it black and give it like a gold stroke, to be
Mhm.
honest. Like,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
I'm simplifying it, but just that with bold lettering, Batman. Boom.
Yeah.
But I did like the old logo with the, Batman inside of it, which
Yeah,
it's
I like
kind
that
of like
too.
what it's almost like the grandfather of what we have now, but it was
Mhm.
done well. It
Yes.
was done well. It
Mhm.
felt
Mhm.
intentional and not like it was like I'm trying to I'm trying to be cool. It's like when someone learns Photoshop and they're like, "Oh, I can put textures and stuff all over something," and you're like, "That doesn't mean you should do it. Not everything needs honeycombs on it, you know? Like,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
it doesn't. For me, it doesn't work. It doesn't feel heroic at all. It feels just kind of like looks like a weird band logo from the '90s, like
Mhm.
Papa
Mhm.
Roach or something like that. Like, so
Yeah.
definitely, it's a miss, man. Yeah, you got me going. Like this is actually should be just cut out and part of a design class
Right.
because it
Yeah,
doesn't make sense.
exactly.
Doesn't make sense at
Exactly.
all.
The
Yeah,
To that point, the bold Batman logo is what they're doing for Matt Reeves the Batman too. They're literally it's the same it's pretty much the same thing. It's just
yeah,
they've added a subtle texture to it and
yeah,
they've put his Batman logo inside of it. So
yeah.
I
And
was
the
yeah, and they've added the top. I was very pleased to see that because I also like the bold Batman, the Tim Burton type Batman logo. I think that it looks really good. So we won't bore everybody with this topic. It's probably an extremely niche topic. Like you said, it belongs in a graphic design class. So we'll move on to the history and legacy of the characters because this is something I
Yeah.
100% agree with you on. I think that the history and legacy in the DC universe is something really special. I was so glad to see it return in DC Rebirth. It's kind of the one thing about the New 52 that just didn't feel right. It didn't feel right that these characters are all like 30, or
Yeah.
like in their early 30s, and Batman was like in his early 30s and had five adopted sons. It's like
Yeah.
it didn't feel right, and so and
Well,
then
wasn't he like supposed I thought he was supposed to be 25. That's what made it even weird. Like I
oh
thought he
yeah.
was like, who knows?
It's like Dick Grayson must have been Robin for like 6 months. It's like
Yeah.
it kind of robbed these characters a lot of the relationships that made these stories so heartfelt. And yeah, Batman. I think he's like in his late 20s, and he's a 13-year-old son. It's like, and obviously Damien was a aged
Yeah.
artificially, but
Which was weird.
still, yeah, but still, I think it's just better if Batman's in his 40s and he's got Damien's 13 years old,
Yeah.
and was raised by Talia. But yeah, I 100% agree. I think something that really struck me, like I got teary reading the DC Rebirth #1 issue by
Hmm.
Jeff Johns, with Wally West. That scene where Barry remembers and pulls him out of the Speed Force. That was super touching. The relationship, I don't really like angry Batman, the Frank Miller angry Batman. I much prefer the like Batman that sees Dick Grayson as an adopted son and like really cares about him and
Yeah.
cares about Dick, cares about Jason, all that stuff. Clark and Kara, Clark and John now, his son Clark and Connor. All of these like legacy characters, and then of course like characters from the JSA and inheriting
Hmm.
the mantle from the previous person and being mentored by some of the actual founding members of the JSA that are old. I think all of that's great, and I'm so glad that it's returned to the DC universe.
Wow. Yeah. The That was one of the things that really confused me with the New 52. It's like that was like part of the. I'm trying to think like it's like the one thing that people loved about DC was the rich legacy, and for them to say, hey, you know what, that's no longer important. But they were so convinced that like saying our characters are younger is what's going to draw people into it. And initially, like they had a lot of sales. Like the New
Mm-hmm.
52 was like on fire when it first launched.
Mm-hmm.
Then it kind of fizzled out
Mm-hmm.
because they didn't have the history wasn't there, the legacy wasn't there, and it felt like so they're why does it matter that they're young? Because the stories don't matter. It doesn't like none of that came into play really. Like oh Batman's only 25. Okay, well now he's hip. Like that never it wasn't even a story beat, like and a lot of those stories were written before the initiative came in, like because
Mm-hmm.
Brightest Day was leading up to this, and so the characters that spun out of it like Aquaman and Swamp Thing and stuff, those were not New 52 stories, and they just kind of were able to like shift them in there. um
Mm-hmm.
the DC's like history makes it so rich, and um like I was talking about the JSA stuff, that's the stuff that I think even if you're a new like if you're discovering it now, because
Mm-hmm.
I had a couple friends that really got into the Green Lantern stuff. They were kind of working with me, and they're like, that sounds compelling, because the movie was coming out, we were getting all hyped, and Blackest Night was out, and they're like, that sounds incredible. And so I had a buddy, he went and just read all these trades, and he was like, I got to read more of this stuff. Like,
Mm-hmm.
so sometimes you just get involved in something, like that's what back issues are for, man. Like in
Yeah.
trades,
Yeah.
like go back and do that. And so I thought, how cool is the history of DC? Not cool enough for them to keep it, for them to, it was it like nobody's married anymore, and no
Yes.
one's this. It was just, it was very weird. It was a
Yeah.
very weird decision, and so
It was. It was.
yeah.
And I love not just the history but the progression of the characters. So,
Hmm.
with Tom King's Batman run, speaking of that, as controversial as it was, and as much as people didn't like the focus on the relationship between Batman and Catwoman, I was all for Tom King marrying off Batman to Catwoman. I was like, you
Hmm.
know what? We haven't seen that yet.
Yeah.
We haven't seen Bruce being a married man with a wife, having to balance superhero life with being a husband and a father to Damian,
Yeah.
and trying to build a home, with Selena. I loved how Tom King and Peter Tomasi did this too, because he was on
Oh gosh. Yeah,
he
he's
was on
amazing.
Detective, and he kind of like established the relationship between Selena and Damien, and there was this kind of like understanding between them because they're both kind of come from darker backgrounds, and
Yeah.
and I just thought that was so awesome. And it's little moments like that that make you care about the characters, and that's the thing.
Did you read the Tomasi Superman run?
Yeah, I read the initial issues of it, but I should go back and read it
It's
because.
it's incredible, and again, one of those weird decisions. And I like Bendis. They brought in Brian Michael Bendis and just kind of had him do his own Superman thing, and it wasn't good.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
the Tomasi stuff was incredible. People still talk about it, like, oh man, the stuff he did with Patrick Gleason and Doug Mahnke on that book
Mhm.
at the beginning of Rebirth. I think it went 50 issues.
Mhm.
Um, it was great, and they brought in Jonathan Kent and like Superman being a dad, similar to the show, except there's two brothers, but
Mhm.
it was a really good take, and it didn't bog the character down. It gave him that, like what me and Matt say on the comic show a lot, is that it just gave it a wrinkle, and it's
Mhm.
not forced. It feels like
Mhm.
a natural progression. It's not like, okay, now he's married. It's like,
Mhm.
okay, that was a big deal and that happened, but now he's got this kid, and it feels right for where Superman is now. You
Mhm.
know,
Mhm.
um, I don't know why they're scared to do that, because what's boring is Batman being the lone vigilante of the night. That gets boring after a while. Like, I've
Yeah.
read that.
Mhm.
Batman having a wife, that's interesting.
Who
Him
used to
having a kid's interesting.
who used to
But
be a supervillain, by the way. Like a wife who used to
right,
be a supervillain. Like that's an interesting story, you
yeah,
know? And a great progression for Bruce and a great progression for Selena.
yeah.
I loved the Tom King issue where Bruce and Selena and Clark and Lois go on a date. Do you remember that
Oh,
one?
dude, I love it. I
Oh, it was
love
so
those.
good. And
Yeah,
the funniest, I rarely laugh out loud at comics, but that panel where like where Clark and Lois come out and they're just like holding hands and
yeah,
they're like, "Oh, this is lovely." And then Bruce and Selena come out and they're like making out.
yeah.
It's like
In the tunnel
it's
of love.
yeah, it's just it was so good. It was like pitch perfect for the characters, I felt like.
Yeah.
It was awesome. So, yeah, I agree with you. I think that it's the history and legacy of these characters are really important, and I just hope DC is as they're doing this rebirth thing, or we're in the rebirth era, well into it now. Thank God we're not in the 5G era.
Oh man.
Yeah, that's about history and legacy, but that sounded like that's like taking it too far. I think
Yeah, and I feel like the wrinkles of it was future state.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't know. I don't want to talk like I know, but I'm talking
Mm-hmm.
like I can put the pieces down on the table.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Some of the future state stuff was really good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Some of it was really bad.
Mm-hmm.
Some of it was like, oh, like that that guy started the book and didn't finish it because they shelved this project. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And you felt that in
Mm-hmm.
the initiative. And so I think that was just them trying to, recoup
Mm-hmm.
uh,
Mm-hmm.
an idea. And yeah, there was a few creators, that were vehemently against the 5G idea,
Mm-hmm.
and because they believed in the legacy of these characters. And um, so I think DC's, they've been really good at taking chances.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think you need to with comics. It's the only medium you can take chances, because you can reset very easily in the next issue. Oh, guess what? You
Mm-hmm.
know, it was a bad dream, or whatever. That's the beauty of comic storytelling. Um, Sometimes you tap into something gold, right? I think the key thing is for it always has to make sense in a story. We're talking about Batman. None of the stuff in Batman right now really feels like it makes sense. It's like, wait, especially if you've been reading what Tom King did, and I understand an author doesn't want to be beholden to the things put before him, but
Mm-hmm.
there were some really great concepts that they could have really leaned into and extrapolated out. Instead, it's like, nope, we're going to completely go into uh, a bizarre direction. To be honest,
Mm-hmm.
we did, yeah, it just a lot of weird takes, a lot of kind of. I'm not going to spoil anything for you, but like as you've been reading these comics, we know he hasn't made it. He doesn't make it out of the Tom
Yes.
King run.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
and Tom King it was supposed to be like a hallucination. DC said
Mm-hmm.
go with it, and so now Alfred's dead, and there's been so many times in his current run where Batman not having a butler has been kind of a joke. Like, oh, I don't know how to make food. I don't have a butler anymore. And it's like, ha, ha,
Yeah.
ha, ha, ha. It's like he's like that's weird. That's a weird joke. Like, just tonally off. Tonally, like
Yeah.
like that's actually a very compelling part of Batman's story. Like, oh, he no longer has Alfred. What's he
Mm-hmm.
do? Instead, it's
Mm-hmm.
like this, like, oh well, my new friend has money. He'll buy me lunch. Like, weird, just I don't know, weird misses, and I don't understand like what's
Yeah.
going on with that book. But
I know.
um,
I know we were making fun of the super teams earlier, like the Team Flash, Team Arrow, all that
yeah,
kind of stuff. But I think it's also a mistake to isolate the characters,
Mhm.
and that's kind of what the New 52 Superman got wrong.
Mm,
Is they totally isolated Clark.
yeah,
They broke up I mean, they didn't break up the marriage. It never happened. The
yeah,
marriage between Lois and Clark, and his parents are dead, and he's basically alone. He's
yeah.
got no one. And for Grant Morrison, it works. Grant Morrison started with that comic
Oh yeah,
title, but it was kind of like, it worked. They kind of like gave Morrison what he wanted without thinking about how other writers would need to use this character
yeah,
in the future, and it made those books super boring because it was
yeah.
basically a lot of. I remember reading a Superman title, and I think it was by Dan Jurgens, who is more than capable of writing a
Oh
Superman book.
yeah,
He wrote Death of Superman, of course, and reading through, and it's like literally so many monologue boxes because Superman has no one to talk to.
yeah.
And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, this book. So I think there's a balance that you have to strike. The TV shows Scooby teams, quote unquote, are,
The
you know
Scooby teams.
they're not going to work in the comics per se, but
Yeah,
but isolating the characters, and it kind of feels like, Batman with Alfred missing, kind of feels like there's something missing there,
yeah,
in and something that's valuable. So hopefully they bring him back. I'm sure Alfred will be back, serving Batman tea or vichyssoise cold soup as he does in
Vichyssoise. That's
is
right.
as he does in
It's cold.
Batman. It's cold, yeah. Which brings me to we're gonna just round out the show here with some recommendations. So we're gonna start
Oh,
with some best DC movies. Justin, what are some DC movies that you would recommend?
oh man, my favorite. How many do I get?
You have as many as you want, my friend. There's
Oh
no
man,
limit. Hmm.
no limit. I absolutely adore Batman '89. I feel like it's just something about that movie. It just feels like a movie. That sounds dumb. It's a movie. It feels like it felt
Hmm.
special to me. Um, there's something about the music, the atmosphere, the freaking car, man. That car is like, if you never knew the word Batmobile, you would see that car and go Batmobile.
Hmm.
you know. And a guy named Batman must drive it. Like,
Yeah.
and there's so many great moments. There's definitely, like, you can pick the crap out of the movie. Like, there's definitely some weird, like, plot things, and legend is that they just kept writing the movie as they went for
Mm-hmm.
the ending.
Mm-hmm.
Jack Nicholson's bananas as the Joker. He's actually my favorite cinematic Joker.
My
I love
brother's
him.
take on Jack Nicholson is they sat around and they were like, well, the Joker's insane. Let's hire a real insane person, Jack Nicholson, to play the role.
Yeah, really.
And yeah, I've always
Yeah,
thought that's a funny take.
yeah. That's
Mhm.
not far off. you know.
Yeah.
So I love Batman '89 for what it is. It it's like magical to me. It's my favorite. It's my favorite like on-screen Batman. And that's not to knock like, Christian Bale and stuff like that. Like I think Batman Begins is not far behind for me. I
Hmm.
love that movie, but I feel like what especially that movie, I feel like it really embraced Batman as
Hmm.
a creature of the night type of guy.
Hmm.
And I
Hmm.
like that. And I think that that's the best version of Batman is when he is this like mysterious shrouded character. But I
Hmm.
think he can still I think that's the one thing I was missing from, Zack Snyder's Justice League is Batman was never shrouded. He was
Hmm.
always just hanging out like his cape. I made this complaint I think on with the Straight Outta Gotham guys because I'm like Batman's cape is always just behind him. Like we didn't get any like, and Zack Snyder is a visual dude. Like we have that
Hmm.
great shot of him on the gargoyle, just kind of like standing ready to leap down.
Yep.
But like we never have the cape over, like
Hmm.
hiding the bat symbol and like
Hmm.
just kind of like so he looks like he's hiding in the shadows. Like I
Yep.
think we should have got more of that. I think I love that aspect of Batman, just kind of always there, even if he's in the Justice League.
Hmm.
Some of the best stuff that is in that Justice League of America comic that Grant Morrison did is the whole team's there. Batman, you just see his silhouette in the back and a little yellow bat.
Yep.
But anyways, so there's all that being said, I love Batman '89. I love Batman Returns too. Again, I think I'm just a Burton guy at the same time, and Batman Returns is the most uh, you know, un like classic Batman story there is, like mutant birds, weird cat secretaries,
They could have named that movie Tim Burton Unchained. Like
yeah.
that is that movie
Oh
for
yeah.
sure. Hmm.
100%. So, but I something about it I love. I like that movie. Batman
Hmm.
Begins. You're gonna get a lot of Batman in this because I'm a Batman guy. Um,
Hmm.
and to be honest, the DC film output isn't very deep beyond those guys until now. You're gonna start getting other stuff. I really love Man of Steel.
Hmm.
Um, I love Watchmen. I think Watchmen, not like DC mainstream, but like a DC publication. I think what Zack Snyder did with that film, he did something impossible, and he took a
Hmm.
12 issue story and made it work in whatever version you watch. But like
Hmm.
I think the director's cut is I don't prefer the ultimate cut because the Black Freighter stuff just kind of drags it down for me when it cuts to
Hmm.
those animated things. But the director's cut's pretty great. um
Hmm.
you know uh and then I would say I actually really love Batman versus Superman. I always say I love 73% of it. The other stuff,
Hmm.
it's weird because it's like parts in it, not like, oh, I can't really say this section bugs me. I don't like the Doomsday stuff because I think
Yep.
that that should be movie 4.
Yep. Hmm.
Um, and Eisenberg bugs me, but there's a lot of stuff in there I really do like.
Justin, can I tell you when I saw
Please.
Batman versus when I saw Batman versus Superman, my initial I went to a fan screening. Like, you remember when Zack Snyder did that like trailer screening,
Yeah.
and then it was like, hey, everybody that's at this trailer screening, you're gonna get to see Batman versus Superman a week early.
Yeah.
So I went to go see it, and I sat in stunned like amazement
Uh-huh.
of that film. I was like, wow, that was incredible, you know? And then walked out of the movie, and the more I thought about it, the more that it just kind of didn't rub me right, you
Hmm.
know? And I think the stuff, like you say, there's a lot of really great stuff in that movie,
Yeah.
but the stuff that bugs me really bugs me,
Yeah.
you
Agreed.
know?
Agreed.
I don't like Superman saying nobody stays good in this world anymore.
Yeah.
Like, that's just it's not, you know, Superman would never say something like that.
Yeah.
So,
At least he wouldn't say it that early, in his
yeah.
career. Like I feel
Mhm.
like Superman is an extension of, Superman's Clark Kent. And
Mhm.
he's had all this time growing up with the Kents and learning what it means to be a good person.
Mhm.
He's
Mhm.
intrinsically good.
Mm-hmm.
and for him to be all mopey, I agree. I don't like it. But I
Mm-hmm.
will say I understand what they were doing.
Mm-hmm.
They were trying
Mm-hmm.
to pit the world against him. Like half the people thought he was a hero, half people are like, "Why is he here?" And he's like, "I don't know." I'm like, "Oh, I'm sad." Like I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I got it, and for
Mm-hmm.
the context of the film, I went with it.
Mm-hmm.
It's not my preferred version of what I want Superman to be. My
Mm-hmm.
preferred version of Superman is, uh, sorry to say it, but is kind of what we got at the end of, theatrical Justice League.
Yeah.
You know,
Yep.
sure of himself, there to
Mm-hmm.
like, some of the quips are a little goofy, but like
Mm-hmm.
that, I love the race with the Flash. To
Mm-hmm.
me, I'm like, man, that was the best material Henry Cavill got. to,
Mm-hmm.
to smile, to kind of be like the big brother, loved it. Like that's
Mm-hmm.
who. But anyways, back to the best DC movies.
Yeah.
So I will go on tangents.
No, it's okay.
So
I'm the same.
yeah, yeah, right. I'm just like, man,
Mm-hmm.
and so I definitely gonna throw Dark Knight in there. Dark Knight is a great film.
Mm-hmm.
Um, of the Nolan films, I think Batman Begins is my favorite, but Dark Knight, you can't list off great DC movies and not say that. And then I would say Wonder Woman. I think Wonder Woman's actually like the of the modern DC films. I think it's the crown jewel.
Mm-hmm.
Because it hit all the notes perfectly. People give the third act a little bit of you know a problem. It's not as bad as people say.
Mm-hmm.
DC just needs to put some color on their bad guys. Like if you line them all up, all gray. Everybody's gray.
Mm-hmm.
Gray, 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 gray
Mm-hmm.
day. Like everyone's gray. They put a little blue on that guy, he would have looked great.
They need to bring Brainiac in there, man. They need to
Oh
bring
man.
they
Yeah.
need to make him green. They need to bring him in there.
It's
Sad
just it's
because
weird that we haven't seen him yet. Yeah.
yeah, it's sad. It's sad because it's probably not going to be Cavill, but
I'm my fingers are crossed. My
yeah,
fingers are crossed.
me too,
So
man. I'm right there
yeah.
with you.
We
So
we'll talk off air.
yeah,
We'll talk
yeah.
off air.
Oh, okay, sweet, sweet, yeah.
Hint, hint.
Yeah. My favorite. I'm not going to go on. But I did want to bring this up about Batman '89 because I've brought up on Twitter before that I make a distinction between the best and my favorite.
Yeah,
So I would say
it's
that
good.
Batman Begins and Dark Knight are better made films,
Yeah,
probably. But Batman 1989 is my favorite Batman film
yeah,
and probably my favorite DC film of all time.
yeah,
Part of that's probably nostalgia. I was a kid when it came out. I was 2 when it came out, but I watched it when I was a kid, and I loved it. But I love Michael Keaton's Batman. Um, I love Jack Nicholson's Joker. Everything about that is just like classic Batman to me.
yeah,
And even even the things that like people nitpick about, like the all black suit. For that, it works. Like
yeah.
I want Keaton to wear an all black suit in the Flash in future DCEU movies.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Like I feel like that's so appropriate for his character. So Batman '89 is definitely a solid one for me. I love Wonder Woman. I'm with you on Wonder Woman. I think Wonder Woman is absolutely terrific. And a more recent one is Shazam. I thought
Oh yeah,
they
that's
nailed
right.
Shazam. I think that's a great. Everybody that came out of that, it was so funny. I was a personal evangelist for WB on that movie. Um, so many people, because people text me all the time, because I'm a cinephile. I love movies. So
Mhm.
I have an AMC A-list membership. I love going to the movies, all that kind of stuff. So people text me all the time and are like, "What movie should I go see?" And so I'd message them back and say, "You should go see Shazam," and they'd be like, "What? Shazam? Really?" And I'm like, "Yeah, Shazam is it's really good. It's a great
Yeah,
great movie." And every single time people would call me, not text me, they would call me and be like, "Dude, we just got out of Shazam. It is such a great movie." So
yeah,
I thought that David Sandberg really nailed that character. Zachary Levi did a great job, and I'm really looking forward to the future of Zachary Levi in the DC universe. I
yeah,
think that he's going to be great, and of course, Dwayne Johnson's joining the fold too with Black Adam, and it's going to be it's going to be really. I think that to me is a really exciting corner of the DC universe.
Yeah.
It's I think it's going to be really good. So those are some of my favorite movies. Of course, Superman the movie is great. It's a product of its time for sure.
I'm
It's
not gonna. I won't speak on it because people will get mad at me again.
yeah, and same with Superman 2. So I'm assuming you didn't care for Wonder Woman 84.
You know what? There's definitely parts I like. For me, the hard part was Maxwell Lord,
Yeah.
because I'm used to an interpretation in the comics,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm like, I don't know why they didn't go with that interpretation. I think it would have actually been better.
Yeah.
Um, so other than that, like I don't have any issues with the other stuff people had issues with. I thought it was fun. I thought it
Yeah.
made sense because it felt like an '80s film. My
Yep.
biggest criticism is like, yo, put some '80s songs in the movie
Yes.
because that would have been
Also,
great.
also, I felt like the first act, there's two action scenes and then an hour of talking. And then that action scene in Cairo.
Oh,
I
that was a
kind of,
great scene.
yeah, I thought so too, but I really felt like that could have been edited down, you know?
Yeah.
And also too, my other thing about Wonder Woman 84, I'm only bringing up Wonder Woman 84 because I brought up Superman and Superman 2, and to me, that Patty is really influenced by those movies, and
Mm,
she nails the tone in
yeah.
those movies. I feel like, but or what was I gonna say? Oh, the other thing about Wonder Woman 84 is I kind of feel like the studio executives got Patty and Jeff into a room and were like, so Chris Pine needs to come back. So
Yeah.
whatever you do, figure out how to bring Chris Pine back.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of like, okay, well, and I'm sure they wanted Chris Pine back too.
Yeah.
Because who wouldn't want Chris Pine in their movie?
Yeah,
Like,
he's
he's
great,
great.
dude. Guy's got like so much charisma. You're like,
Yeah.
I'll watch a Steve Trevor film.
And him and Gal just have such electrifying chemistry. I mean, they're
Yeah.
just like so great on screen together.
Yeah.
But I after Wonder Woman 84, I was like, I want them to do a romantic comedy. I think that
Oh yeah.
they would be great in a romantic comedy together.
Yeah.
You know. But yeah, I think that there's a lot to love about that film. We'll move on here. Must read DC books.
Oh man. Oh, there's so much, dude. It starts. I'm gonna try to pick ones that don't require you to like read this, but you have to read this and you have to read
Mm-hmm.
this.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, and maybe some of them are gonna be runs, and so
Mm-hmm.
I'll put out there right now. Uh, Mark Waid's The Flash is incredible. You should read Mark Waid's The Flash. There's like omnibus and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and when I say you're reading Mark Waid's The Flash, you're reading Wally West as the Flash.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, it's it's really great stuff. I believe it's where the Speed Force comes from. And then Jeff Johns' run was incredible as well. He did a really great. Just if you're in the supporting cast, this is the stuff I wish the TV shows would dig into.
Mm-hmm.
It's like there is the Team Flash like in the show, but all it really is just taking the supporting cast and giving them like superhero roles. Like
Mm-hmm.
in the book though, not everyone runs around fast, and like he's got his rogues gallery. It's almost cat and mouse with them. Like, oh, this is what we do. We antagonize the Flash, and
Mm-hmm.
there's antics. So, some really great superhero stories there. So I would say read those.
Mm-hmm.
We talked a little bit about the Superman Rebirth books
Mm-hmm.
from Tomasi and Gleason and
Mm-hmm.
Monkey. That's some incredible, like in the modern age. That Tom King's Batman's all to me. Every issue Tom King's done. Mr. Miracle by Tom King. If it's from
Mm-hmm.
Tom King, read it. I'm a Tom King mark.
Mm-hmm.
He's
Mm-hmm.
used a wrestling term. Like anything he makes, I'm gonna read.
You're a Tom King stan, as the kids say.
Oh yeah, I am a stan. There you go. I am a stan. But I'm also objective enough to say I didn't like his DC. He did DC Crisis, Heroes in Crisis. I didn't like that.
Oh yeah, yeah. I
I
didn't
wasn't a
like that
fan.
either.
Wasn't a fan
I
of that.
I actually dropped off of that book, to be honest, because I'm a Tom King fan as well, and so he's one of the few that I'll actually buy like I'm horrible. I do digital,
Yeah. No, that's
but
fine.
yeah, but I'll buy the book when it comes out
Yeah.
on digital, and yeah, I did not care for Heroes in Crisis as
Yeah.
well. Yeah.
It didn't do much for me.
Mhm.
Moving on to like Batman, I will say, like you said, year one, Long Halloween, those are great. Those are great books. I would also encourage people to pick up some of they do these collections of like artists and stuff, and
Mhm.
pick up anything that Norm Brayfogle worked on. He's one of my favorite Batman artists from the '90s.
Mhm.
Anything that he did on Detective Comics and Batman Comics with Alan Grant
Mhm.
and Doug Monick, what or Monch, I forgot how to say his name, but that was incredible.
Monkey.
No, Doug M- Monk,
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Munch. He was the writer in like the '90s and '80s on those. Anyways, some really great Batman stories, man.
Mhm.
Uh, so if you're looking just for, again, get this stuff on the DC, Infinite app. That
Mhm.
thing, that's it's gold, man. It's gold for comics. Jeff Johns' Green Lantern run and
Mhm.
everything
Mhm.
he did from Hal Jordan coming back as the Green Lantern to Blackest Night, even into New 52, it just keeps going. The New 52 doesn't really disrupt it much, minus a few weird, like, oh, that was weird. So they don't know each other. Okay, whatever. So yeah, anything Green
It's
Lantern.
it's weird. It's weird to think of now, but for a while, Green Lantern was the best selling book at DC.
It's incredible, dude.
Like right under Batman. And Jeff took that title from like one title to like there were like 4 or 5 Green Lantern titles going
There
on
was.
at DC.
I just actually did a whole categorization of my comics. That's how cool I am. And I forgot about, oh yeah, Emerald Knights. That was a book. Like,
Mhm.
in like, so there was a whole bunch of books going on,
Mhm.
even the Red Lanterns had their own book. Larfleeze had a special, like, so there was a whole bunch of like uh spin-offs, man. So
Mhm.
you are not wrong. The,
Mhm.
the the rings were going wild in early 2000s,
Yes.
mid to late 2000s. So
Every color got a power ring.
that's right. I have them too,
Mhm.
man. Every week you'd get one. When Blackest Night was going out, you get a
Yep.
book and they'd give you a ring. So I would say those are some great things as far as like big crossover stuff.
Mhm.
If it has the word crisis in it,
Mhm.
check it out. So, a lot of people say Crisis on Infinite Earths is really great. It's kind of wordy.
Yeah.
One of my favorite of the
It's
Crisis stuff.
I find Crisis on Infinite Earths weedsy too. It's like
Oh,
very in the weeds of DC
mm,
lore and history, and it's kind of it the they're assuming you know a lot about the DC universe,
yeah,
like pre-Crisis reading that book.
exactly. And
Mhm.
it could bog you down, but
Mhm.
yeah, I would say follow writers. Anything like Greg Rucka has done at DC's been really good.
Mhm.
Again, like I said, Mark Waid's DC stuff. He did a really cool run on Brave and the Bold.
Mhm.
That was really good.
Mhm.
So yeah, man, I, I, I I'm kind of like find a good writer that you like, and then follow their career. I think you'll come across more stuff that you like,
Mhm.
especially if you're into a voice, because some stuff's gonna weird people out. Like Grant Morrison on Batman, I actually like it. Some people didn't. It was too weird, and it was weird, but it was kind of cool weird.
It was gloriously weird, man. I
Yeah,
love that run on Batman.
yeah. But but then it went into Scott Snyder's run.
Uh-huh.
That's a great run on Batman. And then at the end of it, it kind of got weird. Like, oh, like Jim Gordon, Batman, all that stuff. Uh yeah, I'm trying to cover all the characters. And
Mhm.
Jeff Johns' run on Aquaman was good. I would actually say pick up the Peter David run on Aquaman though, right
Mhm.
before his hand gets cut off.
Mhm.
That's a phenomenal run on Aquaman. It's some of my favorite stuff in the Aquaman universe, and I hope that they explore it one time in a film. Is the Sharks were my favorite, like, supporting cast. Like, if there's a Team Flash, if there's a Team Aquaman, the Sharks are on the team, because
Mhm. Yeah.
like the Sharks would talk. They would be like, what's going on, and they'd be like, huh, and they're always very forgetful, and like they
Mhm.
just swim off, and it was just really funny. Like, these characters are part of the world. So yeah, man. So check that Peter David run of Aquaman out. It's so good.
Mhm.
Sorry, man. I'm like going through, like, my brain is a long box. I'm just flipping through it, man.
No, it's
So
okay. It's all right.
yeah. So yeah, there's some recommendations.
Mhm.
Long Halloween. That's great.
Yeah, yeah. So I would say for just going through some of the characters and like writers, Batman. I would highly recommend every Batman fan, everyone who wants to like kind of know about Batman in the modern age, should read Batman Year One,
Oh yeah,
Batman The Long Halloween, and Batman Dark Victory. It's going to kind of set up Batman's world for you, even into the modern day where they've kind of rebooted since then. And you know, but there's nothing that's really replaced that.
yeah.
Those books.
You're right.
Scott Snyder tried with Zero Year. I don't think it's quite as iconic as
It's
Year
not.
One, and in hindsight, so those are really good. Scott Snyder did an excellent run though on Detective Comics with Dick Grayson as Batman,
Yeah,
and it was called Batman: The Black Mirror. It's very dark. I would
yeah.
not recommend getting it for like your 11-year-old. It's like
Duly noted.
it's extremely dark.
Yeah,
It's about, you know, the villain is a vicious serial killer, and they're it's very sort of real feeling.
yeah,
But it's really terrifically done. The whole concept, it's kind of a meta story too, because it's kind of about the concept of the writer's concept of the Black Mirror, about holding a black mirror up to your protagonist and creating an antagonist. And so it's kind of the first great villain for Dick Grayson as Batman, that he's had on his own, you know, that he
yeah,
didn't inherit from Bruce. And I actually really, and we can just throw it out there. It's James Gordon Jr., James
yeah.
Commissioner Gordon's son. And I really think, I think he's dead now in the comics, if I'm not mistaken. I
He
think
was back, and now he's dead again. Yeah.
yeah. So, but
Poor, poor Junior.
I know, poor Junior, thrown off a bridge as a
I know.
baby.
I was just gonna getting thrown off a bridge will mess you up, man.
Guy's never gotten a break, but yeah, I would definitely say that that's a really good one. Superman. I concur with you on the Tomasi run. From what I've read the first few issues of it, and it's really well done. 90s Superman is a lot of fun, like
Oh yeah.
the post John Byrne era. Superman was like more popular than Batman in the 90s, so much so that they were trying to get a Superman film off the ground for years. And like you said, it attracted a lot of big talent. I think, you know, Courtney Cox was being circled for Lois Lane. They were trying to get Chris Rock to be Jimmy Olsen,
Yeah, that's so random.
which sounds insane, but it was really cool.
That's the 90s.
But yeah, but you know, the Superman books in the 1990s were really firing on all cylinders.
Yeah.
And then just going back to Batman really quick, another run that I wanted to recommend is Greg Rucka's run on Detective in the early 2000s, and Ed Brubaker's run on Batman. Those are really, really well done.
And Gotham Central.
And Gotham Central, those are all tied together, and they're really good. In fact, Gotham Central started as a kind of a backup in Detective Comics. They did the, you know, the GCPD kind of as a backup, and then they spun it off into its own series, and it was really, really good. Wonder Woman, Greg Rucka's recent Rebirth run is really good, and as well as again, we mentioned the New 52 one from Brian Azzarello is really good. Gail Simone writes a great Batman, Wonder Woman. She writes great Batman too. Gail Simone's awesome. But definitely recommend those. Justice League. I really liked Jeff Johns' run on Justice League. I was really enthralled by that. Dark Side War, Forever Evil, all of those were really cool. And I'm gonna check out Justin I've actually never read the Grant Morrison JLA. So
oh man.
Yeah, I'm gonna check that out.
Yeah, it's like cinematic Justice League. It's great.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
Yeah, I know they tried to recapture that with Brian Hitch's Justice League, but it never really.
It
never
didn't
really
connect.
Got there, so. But yeah, and I concur. One book that I did want to mention, because I know that we're both big fans of it, is Batman 3 Jokers from Jeff Johns.
Oh yeah.
Instant classic Batman story.
Yeah.
Really well done, and really captures Batman really well. So we'll move on now to best DC TV shows.
Oh yeah.
This is a this is a touchy subject because there's a lot of there's some variation here, and DC fans have their feelings about the TV shows, but I think that the first 3 seasons of The Flash from 2014 are really good.
Yeah.
The first couple seasons of Arrow are really good, and trying to think. Oh, Smallville. I know you talked about it. There's a lot of cheesy in Smallville, but there's a lot of gold in Smallville.
Oh yeah.
It's a very watchable TV series.
Yeah.
Lots of fun there, and Lois and Clark is great. And I'm a huge fan of Superman and Lois so far.
Superman and Lois is, I feel like that's going to be special, like
Mm-hmm.
when it's all said and done. Um, yeah. Okay. Does it have to be live action, or are we talking
You can
anything?
do animated. Oh, Batman the animated series, Superman the animated series,
Yeah.
Justice League.
Cool. Yeah. Though
Off to you, my
I
friend.
agree. I agree.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there's something super like zany and fun about Adam West's Batman 66.
Mm-hmm.
And I say that because that's kind of what I grew up on, because as you're a kid, that's the reruns were there.
Mm-hmm.
Um, George Reeves' Superman kind of defined him for me. And so I think that's my issues with the Christopher Reeves, is it's so like opposite of what I thought Superman was. I always
Mm-hmm.
thought Superman was a little more like, I'm gonna break your gun in your hand and punch you in the face.
Mm-hmm.
Where
Mm-hmm.
Christopher Reeves Superman seemed like, now you shouldn't play with guns. That's how I kind of interpreted him, and I just felt like that was off. And it was
Mm-hmm.
also not the same, like wasn't on the same wavelength as the comics I was reading. So yeah, I'm always gonna say George Reeves Superman. I know it's the 50s, and I know he's like wearing soggy pajamas, but there's something about that Superman that I really liked. So I really enjoyed that show. And then I'm gonna say Doom Patrol is incredibly weird and
Mm-hmm.
great. It's just a great it's just well done and weird. And sometimes I don't like the episodes, but I think what they're doing is what I want that type of approach done more.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it's really honoring what the books are. And so if you've read any of the Doom Patrol stories, they're doing a good adaptation of what that book is and the feeling of that book. I'm like, you can't watch that and go, this is not the Doom Patrol. It's 100% authentic to what those stories are. So I think that's a good one. Um, I used to really like the Swamp Thing TV show from the
Mm-hmm.
early 90s. I don't
Mm-hmm.
know why, I was just into it. So I'm going with some of the random ones because I don't love the CW shows. I think
Mm-hmm.
um, a lot of them wear me out.
Mm-hmm.
Besides Superman and Lois, I think that's good. Black Lightning, the first 2 seasons are incredible. Check those
Mm-hmm.
out. Those are
Mm-hmm.
good. Those are good shows. So yeah, but there was a Superboy show in syndication that was pretty good.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it was actually the dude looked like there's two Superboys. One of them got fired, but
Mm-hmm.
those they were great Supermans. They
Mm-hmm.
should just call it Superman because he was just in college. He was young Superman. That
Yeah.
was the good stuff. Yeah, man. And then Krypton was good too. I don't know if you watched Krypton. Krypton was a good
I
show.
watched the first few episodes of it and I liked it. I just didn't,
Yeah,
I just didn't get around to finishing it. So.
yeah. But my hands down favorite DC show was The Flash from the '90s. I don't know.
Oh.
It was just a time and a place, man.
Mm-hmm.
I just
Mm-hmm.
John Wesley Shipp was great as Barry Allen Flash, and I think it's still my favorite DC show. Not the
Yeah.
best, like you said, is it not the best, but your
not
favorite?
not the best, but my favorite.
Yeah,
I'm in the mind. I haven't watched all of that. I we used to watch it. I remember watching it as a kid, as a little kid. My parents. I must have been. It came out in 1990, right?
yeah.
I was 3. I have the faintest of memories
Mm.
of my parents turning it on and watching it. And in my mind, that Flash exists in the same universe as Michael Keaton's Batman.
Oh yeah.
Even,
Well, yeah. There was
yeah.
yeah. Go rewatch the first episode if you can, and it's kind of beat for beat the Batman movie.
Mm-hmm.
Even I mean, they even have the scene from where the Batwing flies into the moon. They
Mm-hmm.
have an electric bolt go across the moon, and it's Danny
Mm-hmm.
Elfman's doing the music. I mean, there are definite like even the "you made me, I
Yeah.
made you" type of thing, like "you made me Flash,"
Mm-hmm.
when you killed my brother, all that stuff. Like, so they took the Batman '89 formula and did a Flash to it. So
Yeah, no, it's great. What did you watch Stargirl? Have you seen
oh
Stargirl?
yeah, Stargirl's fun. Stargirl's a good
Yeah.
show.
Yeah,
Yeah, I like
I
that one.
really I watched that recently all the way through, and I really liked it. It's got, the teen JSA,
Yeah.
which I think is kind of a cool thing, and yeah, it's really I think it's really cool and really really well done. Luke Wilson's in that show, plays the stepdad. I like him a lot.
Oh yeah, he's
So,
great. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it's got good actors, and the next season's supposed to have some surprises. So well,
Ooh,
yeah. So
well, we'll have to keep an eye out for
we'll keep
those.
an eye out for those. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So, Justin, where can people find you online?
oh, you can find me. Want me to give out my address? Here in Southern California. I am on Twitter. You can find me at j_Rocka. And you can just follow the show. Let's Go Podcast Network. We have a whole bunch of shows, and whether they're on podcast or we have a lot of stuff going on YouTube right now. With just there's just so much like content out there, and we're kind of carving our little spot out. So if you go to youtube.com/Let's Go Podcast, you'll find a lot of our shows there. A lot of trailer reviews, movie talk, video games, interviews, everything is there. But the podcast and reviews are all at www.letsgopodcast.com. And I'll just say, like, all of the people on team are amazing, and they all have shows of their own, Emmett and Chris and the Vigilante guys. Everyone's just doing great stuff, and it's fun to do, and
I
love this stuff and do it with
always
them.
I always love guesting on your guys' podcast. They're a lot of fun and definitely worth checking out. They're great. So, Justin, thank you so much for joining me on the show. You've been a
Yeah.
great first guest. This has been a really fun conversation.
Oh, yeah. Nerds.
It went longer than I expected, but
Sorry.
no, I probably should have expected it. I was just having I could literally talk to you about this for probably 4 hours. But,
Oh, yeah. It'll be longer than the Snyder Cut.
yeah, exactly. So that's all we have for the show today. We'll see you guys next time.